Hi VC, James here, welcome to another video. What we're listening to here is Essential Rock and Roll Instrumentals, a recent purchase. I've decided to try and start a little collection of rock and roll instrumental stuff because I just love that kind of music. This is Link Ray and Rumble, fantastic comp. So this is going to be the second part of the video that I made the other day when I showed that Petrol Emotion albums. It's basically a kind of mega haul that I've discovered in Oxfam, in my hometown. Somebody had dumped their entire collection on the Friday. It had been picked through on the Saturday. I arrived on the Monday and managed to get the fag end of it, but I still managed to pick up some really, really good things. This is instalment 2, there will be another instalment to come. Just before I start, if you haven't checked it out already, check out, I uploaded a video recently about Andy McMaster and the Motors. I called it The Return of Andy McMaster or something like that. I kind of wanted to call it my Motors collection because I knew that would kind of, pull more people in terms of, looking at records and stuff. But check out that video if you haven't done already. It's kind of my 1 year in the VC video. So yeah, check that out if you've not already. It's my little tribute to one of the great kind of rock bands, British rock bands of the 1970s. In my usual way, I've got some notes here, so let's get straight down to it. There are a couple, well there's one Grail here and one album that I was really, really pleased to pick up, and well I was pleased to pick all of them up. Let's start with this one. This is Tom Robinson and the album Sector 27 on Fontana. Tom Robinson, British singer-songwriter who came up in the 1970s during the kind of punk era. His band were the Tom Robinson Band, very imaginatively named, and their most famous song is 2468 Motorway, which is still a radio staple here in this country. This was the band he formed after the Tom Robinson Band, formed in 1979, and this is their debut album. It was produced by, and this is interesting, it was produced by Steve Lillywhite. And what's interesting about that is that there was another record I have down, in fact perhaps two records down here in which Steve had a hand in making those records, so rather an odd coincidence. This is a great album. You'd characterise it as post-punk, a little bit of kind of, I don't know, maybe early Cure and the Bunny Men. It has a political side to it. Tom Robinson always had a political edge to his music. Apparently the band made their debut in Liverpool on the 11th of January 1980, and I think they supported Elton John and the Police on tour. Not an album that I'd heard of before, or heard, but it's definitely a keeper. Really good strong songwriting, nice kind of abrasive guitars, lots going on. And it's inspired me to pick up some stuff by the Tom Robinson Band because I don't have any in my collection. So there we go, that's the first one I've got for you today. Sector 27 by Tom Robinson. Okay, so this next one is a great classic of the British pub rock scene going into punk, and it is Eddie and the Hot Rods, Life on the Line, and this is in lovely condition. I should say all these records are in great nick. This one has a nice gatefold. And let me show you the insert. It's on the beautiful Blue Island label. And here we have the insert, which is a noose. Now, am I wrong in saying that assistance on this one by Steve Lillywhite. Okay, so Eddie and the Hot Rods. This is their second album. It reached number 27 on the British charts in 1979 and includes their absolutely seminal hit Do Anything You Want to Do, which reached number 9 on the national charts and once again is a big radio staple still. Nowadays you'd hear it on Radio 2, But Eddie and the Hot Rods were a really important band, really, a bit like Dr. Feelgood. They kind of bridged that gap between punk rock, between pub rock and the punk scene. This album kind of has a bit of an MC5 feel to it. it veers from being slightly clumpy, slightly lumpen, to being amazing. The final track, I might put a link down below, the final track is called Beginning of the End, and it's just an absolute kind of blazing guitar attack, absolutely fantastic. Wonderful thing to find, not a record that I would ever have expected to see in the wild. It was a good price, all these records were good prices. Well, it was $5.99, which obviously it's not £1, but I mean it's in lovely condition and an important British record, I'd say. So that's Eddie and the Hot Rods and Life on the Line. Okay, so a complete change now, a total change of style, is Laurie Anderson and Mr. Heartbreak. Laurie Anderson hopefully will need not too much introduction, although I've never owned any of her music until now. She's a kind of avant-garde singer and artist. She was married to Lou Reed in the kind of later years of his life. She was married to him when he died, in fact, but she's had a kind of long career stretching back to the 1980s. This album is just an incredible piece of work. It features contributions from Peter Gabriel, who is on the song Excellent Birds. Now that track is also on his album So. This is a slightly different version. This was the subsequent album, the sequel to her album Big Science, and it's very conceptual. It has lots of kind of weird avant-garde sounds. She does a lot of spoken word stuff using vocoders. I mean, it's a kind of album that you can put it on and drift off to it, kind of. I mean, it's got these kind of really strange stream of consciousness sort of storytelling lyrics, and it moves from sort of singing into spoken word, back into singing. It's very abstract. It's got very cool sort of 80s synths. Let me show you the record and the insert. Quite a nice insert. I've not heard anybody talk about Laurie Anderson on the BC, but on the evidence of this album, I would say she is an absolute genius, and I will definitely be seeking out more of her records. You can get them on CD quite cheaply, but on vinyl they are a bit more expensive. This was actually considered more mainstream than its predecessor, which was Big Science, but it's still got some really weird stuff on it. It's got Adrian Belew on it as well from King Crimson, and it has a spoken word contribution by the great American avant-garde poet William Burroughs. Really interesting. Just a fantastic album. I've given it a fair few spins already, and I'll be giving it a fair few more. Wonderful thing to pick up in the wild at a great price. Laurie Anderson and Mr. Heartbreak. Okay, now this next one, I nearly didn't pick it up, but then I decided to go back for it, and it's an interesting record, but it wasn't really what I was expecting at all. This is Mott the Hoople, Wildlife, which I believe is their second album. And again, once again, it is in lovely condition. Ian Hunter there on the front. This one is on the White Island Pink Rim label. Now, I'm aware of course I'm aware of Mott the Hoople and their contribution to British rock music, All the Young Dudes and so on, and Ian Hunter's solo albums are very well regarded as well, but this record was nothing like I was expecting, and I did some reading up about it, and it's kind of very uncharacteristic of what people know about their work. It's very, it's almost like Moody Blues kind of territory. It's sort of pastoral, it has mellotron in it, it's very drifty, kind of a bit folky. I do like it, it's just not really what I was expecting. And if Andy's watching, Cloudy Milder, he often talks about albums where the mood is completely shattered or ruined by a really sort of inappropriate cover version. And this record contains a version of Keep a Knockin' by Little Richard, and it just completely shatters this kind of mood. It's kind of all you know, really kind of nice, drifty kind of music. You can kind of lose yourself in it. It's classic kind of head music, you know, like with Nail and I, you know, going to the country to get your shit together kind of music, really, you know, quite stoned ambience. And then it sort of ends with this ridiculous kind of over the top, really good, you know, rock and roll song, but it doesn't really fit with the mood. Again, a nice thing to pick up. You know, this was a little bit more expensive than the others. I think this was £10, but it's in great condition, and even though it wasn't quite what I was expecting, I was pleased to get it. So that's Mott the Hoople and Wildlife. Okay, so the final two are possibly the most, I don't know, the most interesting or the most kind of unexpected. The first one, this was actually in the window when I arrived, and it is in beautiful condition. It is Morrissey, Viva, his first solo album, and a very fine album it is too. A collaboration largely with the guitarist Vinnie Riley from Durutti Column, and he just plays some brilliant guitar. I mean, Suede Head actually is my favourite thing that Morrissey ever did. The guitar on that track is just absolutely fantastic. But it's got some great tracks, Every Day is Like Sunday, Bengali and Platforms. It was just a really strong way for Morrissey to start his solo career. I haven't followed Morrissey's career kind of in depth. I have heard a fair few of his albums, and I've got about maybe 3 albums on CD. But I'm not a big fan of Morrissey as such, but I do really like this album. So I was really pleased to pick that up. And like I say, it was in the window, priced at $11.99. But that's not bad, because when you look online for it, you can't really get it cheap, and it is immaculate, you know. So I was really pleased to pick that up. First solo album by Morrissey, released on the 14th of March 1988, 6 months after the final album by the Smiths. And there was some controversy caused by the track Margaret on the Guillotine, apparently, which described the death of the Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher as a wonderful dream. Morrissey is quite a controversial guy. Don't always agree with what he has to say, but quite happy to have this in the collection. Okay, so I've saved the best till last, so let's show you this one again. Immaculate. Absolutely immaculate condition. Rain Dogs, Tom Waits, an album that I've had on CD for a long time, but it was a grail because I never expected ever to find it in the wild, you know. And to see this, again, this was in the window. So I think I was quite lucky in a way, because it could easily have just been snapped up, you know, on a Monday afternoon. Now, I'm sure you don't need much introduction to this record, but I'll just give you a little bit of a heads up on it just in case. Okay, so it is in fact the 8th album by Tom, released in September 1985 on Island Records, a loose concept album about the urban dispossessed of New York City, and it's generally considered the middle album of a trilogy that includes Swordfish Trombones and Frank's Wild Years. Features contributions from Keith Richards and the avant-garde guitarist Mark Ribot. It peaked at number 29 on the UK album charts, and it was ranked number 21 on the Rolling Stones list of the 100 greatest albums ever made. So, just a great one to have for the collection. Of the Tom Waits albums I've heard, it is my favourite one. It's not too far out. I'm sometimes a little bit, I don't always like the kind of constant sort of play acting and the kind of actorly stuff that he does. I sometimes don't quite know how to take it. I think that's quite a common reservation that people have about Tom Waits. But this record contains some really, really emotional stuff, you know, things like Anywhere I Lay My Head, Gun Street Girl, some really beautiful ballads, really. You know, I think Tom Waits is a great romantic. He has that kind of, you know, late night piano playing thing down to a T, really, doesn't he? And I do love the vocal style he has on this album, that kind of Captain Beefheart growl that he does. Just one of the great sort of albums of the 1980s, and a brilliant one to have on vinyl in pristine condition. Okay folks, so that is part 2. Now, in terms of part 3, You may remember a while ago I did a video called Hunting Harry Nilsson Through the Wild, which was detailing my attempts to find Harry Nilsson albums. Now the other finds, most of the other finds in this haul are, there's 3 records by one band, there's another 3 records by another artist. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do 2 more videos of hunting so-and-so through the wild, and then you'll see what those other records are. But altogether, just to give you some indication, this haul from Oxfam, I spent £70 in 10 minutes. So that gives you some sense of what it was like. So I've still not shown you everything, but that is probably the most impressive section of records, but there's plenty more to come, so stay tuned for those. And I'll see you very soon. I'm going to get back to my rock and roll instrumentals now. So take care, VC, and I'll see you soon. Bye.